I'm Julia Ridley Smith. I'm a writer, professor of creative writing, and the descendant of the maker of the Ridley quilt. The Ridley quilt was made by my ancestor, Margaret Ann Bynum Jordan Ridley. She lived in Southampton County, Virginia, and she made this quilt in 1846 and inscribed it to her baby son, Nathaniel, who would have been about 2 at the time. She had 8 children and lived on a plantation called Bonnie Doon Plantation. Her husband, Thomas Ridley III, would become one of the biggest slaveholders in Southampton County. And his father had been involved in squashing the Nat Turner Revolt, which occurred in 1831 and was one of the biggest slave rebellions in United States history. When I look at this quilt, I'm reminded of a lot of things. My family legacy, so legacies of motherhood, of craft, of women's domestic labor. And I've also used it to investigate the history of slavery in America and my personal relationship through my family to the history of slaveholding. So as I was writing about the quilt, and I was writing this essay where I was bringing together different strands of my family's story, the Nat Turner story, bigger ideas about the history of slavery in America, I started to think that writing an essay was kind of like putting together a quilt, because I think that a quilt is kind of a document on its own, right? You're bringing together all of these different scraps, stitching them together, stuffing it with this batting that gives the quilt its weight, but you don't see that. So in my mind, the quilt kind of became a metaphor for how I was trying to assemble my family stories, both the stories that I had heard growing up and the stories that I was trying to discover as an adult through reading history, through reading documents in courthouse records. So I was pulling all of these kind of scraps and strands together as I was thinking about this object. I think objects are such a rich way of investigating our family history because we all have these objects that we inherit, and I wanted to use material, tangible objects, like the things that we have in our house that are kind of everyday, the things that might come down in our family that are special or that we consider heirlooms, and use those to investigate not only what it is that we inherit in a tangible way, but what we inherit in terms of beliefs, stories, memories, all the ways that our family shares information with us or doesn't share information with us, and how that goes into shaping who we are.